Hi, I'm Ida. I play the bass in Spiruline. Thank you so much, Fikri, for giving me this interview with great questions. Um, I've always felt more comfortable with string instruments, first of all, because I used to play the violin when I was younger, so it felt more comfortable for me. And but guitar wasn't really my thing. I've learned a bit of it, but I'm not really that good. And I've always liked bass, but I didn't have a bass. And when we started Spiruline, I kind of thought, okay, maybe this is the time I can finally start learning the bass. And I think I like that it's very important in a band, yet very discreet, and I like the role of foundation that it has. And it's honestly a lot of fun to play, and I think you can play so many genres with it, not only hardcore and punk, of course. So I think that's that, mostly. Ooh, honestly, I haven't ever really researched bass players. But I think one that I really, really admire is Van de Cat. Nothing to do, or yes, he has to do with punk hardcore, actually. But now he only plays like funk, pop, soul kind of music, and he's a bassist. He also sings, and he has really, really fun songs, and he plays amazingly well. He has a really technical way of playing, and he's super fast on the bass, even though he has like a bass with 6 strings that is huge. I really don't know how he does that, but I just love his music, and it's very technical yet still very fun to listen to, because sometimes with music that is very like difficult or technical, it can get very intellectual and sometimes a bit like the result is not that interesting. But in this case, I think the music is so fun and so nice to have, and he's really laid back, and really he seems like a very easygoing person, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. And actually he started, well, I don't know if he started, but he played for a long time in suicidal tendencies, which is fun, I believe. It's funny that he played so long in that band and then resorted to super fun and not too serious funk music. I just really love what he does, and he has that jazzy feel to it, even though it's still very easy to listen to and very danceable, to put it that way. So I think that's gonna be one I'm gonna be mentioning. Maybe I'll name drop other ones that come to my mind later. So yeah, I used to play violin from when I was 8 to when I was 18. I honestly don't know what made me choose this instrument. There was always a lot of music at my house. My parents listened to a lot of music, mostly rock and roll, soul, a little bit of punk, pop, rock, Britpop, that kind of stuff. Music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 90s, mostly, especially my dad. But we did listen to some classical music once in a while, especially my mom. She liked it because she found it relaxing. And I don't really know why. I think I also got some introduction to the instrument at school, but I just remember feeling like, oh, I want to learn the violin. And my parents have always been very supportive of what I wanted to do, even if it didn't last long. They always tried to give me the chance to try at least the stuff I wanted to try. which was the case for the violin. So I played violin for 10 years, and that I think I stopped when I started my after when I started to go to university. So, and I honestly don't have the level of someone that played 10 years of violin, because I didn't do like the classical course, like the music schools in France are called conservatoire, and it's quite intensive, and I didn't do that. I only studied with a private teacher that was very nice, and she was an amazing teacher, honestly. I was not a good student though. I didn't rehearse enough. I used to just panic rehearse the day before my course. So looking back, I could have learned so much more from her and played so much better than I do today, but it is what it is. And honestly, I learned a lot of stuff that is with her that is applicable to all kind of instruments and all kinds of music. So I don't regret it at all, even though I didn't continue with violin. I don't think it was really my instrument, maybe. I don't know. I loved it, but not enough to like continue with this instrument. And maybe it's more restrictive in terms of what you can play. You can play whatever you want with whatever instrument, of course, but I wasn't really into like putting violin in rock and roll and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I tried other instruments also. I learned the guitar. I did a bit of clarinet when I was in school, at school. I learned at school, and I did a lot of singing when I was in high school and in university, lyrical and in choir, and I loved it too. I felt more. I've been singing in my room for a long time, but it was very nice to actually learn some technical stuff, and I love it, and I feel like the bass kind of synthesizes everything that I learned and love in each instrument. And I like that I can still sing a little bit and do harmonies and that kind of stuff in Spiruline. So yeah, so I hope that answers the question. I went a bit overboard, but yeah, violin was nice. I'm just really not a good player in violin. I don't play violin regularly today. I actually do a little bit because in my work I ended up having to pick up the violin again because I work with kids, and there was like a musical project with them with violin, and honestly it felt good. That there was a lot of nostalgia, of course, and it was a lot of fun playing in a more orchestra setting. So it makes me happy, but I'm really not a great violin player. Like, I don't have a good sound, which is frustrating because violin can get really like a harassing sound. Well, a really not a pleasant sound if it's not played correctly. Whereas bass, even if you don't have a great sound, it's fine. Violin is not a forgiving instrument. So I'm very happy when I play the violin, but I know it's not as fulfilling as bass. But looking back, the things I didn't understand when I was learning, when I was younger, I do understand them now, what I'm doing wrong and what I'm doing right, so I'm trying to correct it, and there's stuff that just makes sense today. So I'm happy that I kind of went back to it, and yeah, but playing the bass is way more fulfilling to me. Well, I kind of already talked about it, but as I said, there was more than violin, because I played violin for 10 years. When I was in I think it's called middle school in English, before high school, the school before high school, I did a bit of clarinet at school, at the orchestra at school, which I liked, but it's not the most, it was not my favorite, but I really liked it too. It was a lot of fun. And in high school I did a musical diploma. I it was not like it was a diploma to become like a technician in the musical field, not to become a musician per se, but like to be I don't know the words in English, so so yeah, so to work in music, not to be a musician, but all the other jobs that you can have around it, like the people who set up the scene, or orchestras, or like the people who do recording, or who book concerts, or that kind of stuff. That was what I did instead of like doing the end of studies, regular baccalaureate, as it's called in French. And we had to do singing at school. And I was already singing like at home, I loved it, but it got a bit more serious at that time. It was choir singing, and I loved it, and I got into a choir that is not a professional choir, but one that is a really high level choir for non-professionals, if that makes sense. And that was an amazing experience. But at some points I felt that I kind of saw everything, and the COVID was also there and kind of made everything less fun. So, and that's, I think that was after the like COVID crisis started to end that I picked up the bass, when we started Spiruline actually. And I also did start another band at the time that hasn't continued, but I was like, okay, let's pick up the bass. Like, I've always wanted to learn that instrument more than guitar, and I think it's a nice synthesis between different functions of music, because it's not as harmonic. You only play most of the time. You only play like one string, just like violin. Like it's right in between the melodic and harmonic and rhythmic functions of an instrument, and that's what I really like about bass. Like in hardcore or in punk, you're never gonna. Well, you can. Everything's possible. It's not like you're gonna play solos, or that you're gonna be like at the forefront of the sound most of the time. But what I like to say is when you don't really hear the bass if you don't pay attention, but when bass isn't here, you hear that it's missing. And that's when you notice how important bass is in a band. And I think that's what I like about it. It's the rhythmic and harmonic role that it plays. So I think that's what made me switch. It's a bit more forgiving than violin. I feel like at least I can play more genres with it that I like. And yeah, I think I really kind of found my instrument with bass, honestly. In terms of bass, yeah, definitely. As I said, like I tried a lot of instruments, and I love learning stuff in general. And with bass, I think I like. It's gonna sound really pretentious, but I like that it's an important, very important instrument in a band, but that it's not like in the first row. It's not like the first thing you hear or notice or listen, I think, for most people. But when it's not there, it's really missing. Or when it's not interesting enough, it's really missing. And a good bass can really drive a band. And I'm not saying like I'm a great bassist or anything. That's not. I wish I am, and that I will become better and better. Because it hasn't been that long since I've picked up the bass. But I like that it has a discrete yet important role. And it's kind of doing the link between the other instruments. It's doing the bridge between the guitar and the drums, and it's helping the harmonies between the guitar and the singing. And I feel like that's a bit how I am as a person, that I'm kind of the mediator type, like trying to find solutions or compromise. No, that's not the right term in English, but like trying to find bridges and to find ways for people to connect. And I feel like that's what bass does in a band. It kind of connects the rest, even though it's not, even though it's discrete. And so I feel like I'm kind of like that, trying to find ways for everything to work, to find ways to content everyone, kind of. And I think I can have this kind of leader role that I don't always like, but I'm very like a proactive person. I like engaging in stuff, and I like to propose stuff to do, but I don't necessarily like being in like the lights, if that makes sense. But I also kind of like it. Yeah, I hope that makes sense, but I definitely see a link between what I feel that I am and how bass is. Yeah. So we play hardcore punk with a lot of metalcore and riot girl influences. That's generally how we answer to this question, because it's true. I feel like we're punks who listen to hardcore, if that makes sense. For us, it's not necessarily... I know at least in France it's really perceived as two different scenes and genres, but for me it's kind of... It doesn't really make sense. They come from the same place. At first they kind of had the same discourse and the same objectives, and so I think it's two genres that are more closely intertwined today still than we think. So yeah, we play hardcore. We really like how we manage the band and how we are, and the like maybe the like the bratty or kind of sassy way we have of playing and thinking about our lyrics is maybe a bit more on the punk side. But we listened to a lot of metalcore, and that's a very important influence for us. All kinds of metalcore, mainstream, underground, all of it. And our next songs are going to be a bit more into the metalcore side. But we try to keep everything kind of not too difficult or too technical to play, because the main point is to have fun, especially on stage. And yeah, and there's a lot of like, when I say riot girl influences, it's because of like kind of the feminist and kind of the rage that we have, and how we do the harmonies or the kind of shouty lyrics, especially that Freda has, the singer. So yeah, that's how I would describe it. It's as much as a political and musical project to us, very at our tiny scale, of course. Spiruline is not going to change the world, but I like to believe that it's still the idea and that we're part of it. But yeah, it's just as political as it's fun for us, and it's important for us to keep it like fun and engaging, if that makes sense. I think the next ones we're gonna release are gonna be my favorite ones, at least in terms of music, but you're gonna see that at the end of the year, normally. But I think the favorites, I really like the two singles we have released, so Punk Before School and Mosquito, because I think that musically they're a bit more finished, like they're a bit more I'm sorry, I'm looking for my words in English. Polished. And the recording is a bit better too. I feel like we kind of stepped up with these songs. And they are so fun to play too. But I also have, I just love Baby Killer. It's a very important song for us because it's also one of the most polished one we have, like the most, yeah, like it's a bit more, the word in French is abouti. Yeah, it's one of our best songs yet in terms of music, and the lyrics are important for me too because I think I wrote them and we kind of reworked them together. It's a mix of a personal experience and of course how I think and how we think. I'm speaking in I because it's an interview for me and I don't want to speak for the whole band, but of course the whole band thinks it in this case. That we're for free abortion everywhere for everyone, whether you're a trans or a cis person. That nobody should be pressured into having an abortion, of course, if you don't want to, but nobody should be pressured or criminalized for having an abortion. Or you shouldn't be pressured to have a baby if you don't want to. Whatever the reason is, even if it's just I don't want to be a mother right now, or a father, then you shouldn't have to have that kid. You don't have to, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to justify yourself. So it's an important message too. And the point of the song is saying like, there are people trying to shame us and trying to make us believe that it's a crime, that it's wrong, and that you're a baby killer. And the point of the song is saying, well, what? Okay, you know what? Okay, like, I've done a lot of explaining, of justifying, of saying, yeah, but you know, that's why we should keep it legal, and like being really pedagogical about it. And at some point you just get tired and you're just like, you know what? Okay, just spit your hate on me. I don't care. It's meant as an empowering song and as just to say, if you had an abortion, you're not a baby killer. You're fine. You shouldn't be ashamed, and nobody should make you feel like that before or after. And yeah, it's the lyric is like, I'm a baby killer, so what? It's like, what are you gonna do about it? We're still gonna defend this right, and that's it. So yeah, I think it's one of the most important songs for me, at least. But keep your eyes open for the next ones that are going to be released. And yeah, I think this song actually had a lot of people just really like it, this one song. And it always works so good in gigs. And I think Can I, even though there's the song Can I think there's stuff we would have done differently today, but it's one song that we've got a lot of messages saying like, oh, thank you for this song, the lyrics really resonate for me. And it's hard when it's a bit like these introspective songs, a bit more vulnerable. It always feels like they're a bit cringy. I don't know how to put it, but some people really told us like this, the lyrics made me feel something, and it identified with stuff you said in it, and that's important. And even when it's not necessarily a favorite song, it's important to acknowledge that it can be for other people. And we're gonna do more songs like that because we love them. It's just really hard, I think, to like do a more of a introspective and emotional song and be really satisfied with it, because it's so linked to how you feel at this specific moment, I feel. And I love doing the harmonies on this song too, because I love singing. I don't know how to like scream. I just, at this point I've only learned to do clean singing. So I love doing this song. I love singing harmonies. So it's, even though it's not like my favorite, I love doing it. I think it speaks to some people, and we're gonna try and do more of these kind of songs. And I hope we can get a level over. Honestly, I don't know. I think we're doing Spiruline mostly out of fun, out of wanting to be part of this movement, to speak our minds and what we think, and speak our emotions. Sorry, we often write our lyrics at times where we're angry with something, or that something really makes us want to scream and want to speak and take the mic about something. But it's also to have fun, and I hope that people can connect through our music, and not necessarily just ours, but like through hardcore music. I think it's important that the energy that you're bringing into a hardcore concert, especially if like us, you believe that hardcore has a political side to it. It doesn't have to be always like super political and like all the lyrics have to be super serious, and not all the time, but that's just how we do our music in our band. That all of this energy and all the people you meet, that can also lead to other projects, and that you can engage in more projects or in causes that you think are important to defend. That's what I hope, that's what people take away from our music, and also to see us and believe, if they can do it, I can do it too, you know. It's not that serious, it's not that complicated, and if with a little bit of energy and time and the right people around you, and that is something you can really build. It's not just like a matter of luck. You can do so much, and that also sounds a lot very pretentious. But yeah, it's just the whole DIY. I was saying that it's just the whole punk ethos, DIY movement ethos, and DIY way of thinking, of doing things. That's really important for us, and yeah, I just want to make people feel like like they can do stuff at their level, and even that tiny little thing that maybe isn't gonna change the whole world is still important, and is still maybe can make a difference for a few people, and for these few people it's important. Okay. Well, we don't necessarily have decided like you're gonna have this in this specific role, but apart from bass, I do a lot of composing, but we all compose, write together, whether it be the lyrics or the music. It's a bit of a patchwork thing where everyone brings a little bit of something, and we put them together and we see how it works, and we rework things together. So in terms of writing and music, we kind of work together. I'm not good at writing riffs, whereas Titouan, the guitarist, is. So I'm better at like finding the structure of a song. And when I write lyrics, I often just like write things out of emotion and of like an idea that I just had at the spur of the moment, and often it doesn't rhyme. It doesn't have any structure. It's really like way too provocative. So I need the others to kind of tone it down and to have a bit more, to see it from afar. Other than that, we always kind of book our concerts, so we all kind of either send requests when we need to tour or we answer, but honestly it's all of us doing that, maybe mostly Freda and I, depending, and also a bit Titouan, but it really depends on the moment if we have a lot of work or something. I can do a bit of drawing. I don't know how to do like posters and that kind of stuff, but I know how to draw, so sometimes I could do an artwork, but it's gonna be someone else doing like the actual, like putting all the stuff together. I don't know how it's called in English. And I think that's mostly it. And we do our merch alone, like we go and buy secondhand clothing and we print it at a self-managed workshop that a friend has. So we do it all together. I'm not the one buying the stuff most of the time. I don't have enough time. But yeah, I think that's it, really. I like doing also like the technical things, like doing the tech writer. But we don't really have specific roles. We all do a bit of everything, and we also have like a good friend that's called Neo that helps us with like the social networks, the posters and the artworks and that kind of stuff. They follow us on tour most of the time to help us drive, to manage the merch, just give us feedback on stuff, take some pictures sometimes. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. But it's really a lot of teamwork. Sorry. Recording in the studio has always been fun. It's the first EP we did was very DIY, like we booked a rehearsing studio, and we, with our friend Mara, who did the recording, brought like her old laptop and her all the things needed to record us, and we did like, it was chaotic, honestly. We did the singing first, which you never do normally because Fred had to leave for 4 months for her work, but we really wanted to put out something before she left. So we first did like some awful backtracks, and she did the singing. Then we did the drums. Then and we had songs that we hadn't finished, and we didn't, like, our first guitarist had left and we didn't have a second yet. Then we did the drums, then we did the bass, then we did the guitars when Titouan joined us, and that's why it sounds a bit chaotic, and there are some songs that we don't play the same way live than on this EP. But it was a lot of fun, especially recording the voices, because we did all like the shouting and like gang singing together. And for the second, like the last singles we did it in a bit more professional setting. Our friend Joshua Haynes from Résonance 93 did the recording, and he was the one actually who reached out to us. He saw it at the gig, and he was like, I love what you're doing, I totally get what you're doing, like the whole hardcore mixed with Riot Girl stuff, I love it, I have so many ideas for you, and I think I can like add something to what you're doing. And he was so enthusiastic that we were like, okay. So we did the recording with him for the last two singles, Punk Before School and Mosquitoes. So, and I was saying that we had a lot of fun with Josh and with stuff he made. For the voices, he kind of whipped out a microphone that it was basically a talkie-walkie that he made out of a sugar box made for sprinkling sugar. And that had a super cool voice effect. So he had lots of ideas that really worked, and it was a lot of fun and a very creative way of of working. So yeah, we loved recording with him and with Mara too, and yeah, we can't wait to go back to recording the new stuff. So, and I was saying that we had a lot of fun with Josh and with stuff he made. For the voices, he kind of whipped out a microphone that it was basically a talkie-walkie that he made out of a sugar box made for sprinkling sugar. And that had a super cool voice effect. So he had lots of ideas that really worked, and it was a lot of fun and a very creative way of working. So yeah, we loved recording with him and with Mara too, and yeah, we can't wait to go back to recording the new stuff. One we have, at least with Fred, is to do our makeup together. Yeah, we always find like a moment before or after the sound check to do our makeup and to change and be like, what do you think of this outfit? Maybe we can do this, so we're coordinated. Oh, I feel like wearing this tonight, and doing our makeup. And I think it's just a way of like concentrating, release a bit of tension or stress, and it's fun to do it together, and like it makes us feel a bit more confident, I think, before getting on stage, to feel like we're good looking. Maybe it sounds a bit silly, but I think especially maybe when you're a woman and you feel like you're kind of always judged based on how you look, even though it's not necessarily the case, but that you kind of have to deliver, but it's mostly fun for us, and we like looking good on stage, and we like to experiment with makeup and stuff. Like I did my makeup right now, like how I usually wear it on stage, but it changes most of the time, and I don't do my makeup like that every day. But that's our little ritual, like a moment we have together. And Marek, our new drummer, also likes to sometimes put on some makeup, so it's also a nice way of bonding together, I guess. So that's our ritual, and sometimes at least I and Titouan and Marek, as we drink, crack a little beer, and that's it. And sometimes a little pep talk. But we don't like have a specific ritual before getting on stage, I think. Besides that, which is already a lot. That's a good question. I don't think like music should always have a political discourse. Like the music or the band doesn't have to be explicitly political, that's what I mean. Explicitly political all the time. But I feel that especially if you're on stage, you have a platform, you're literally using your voice, I always think of it as something good and better to do as an artist or a musician. That if you have a platform, you should be using it for expressing your views, and not only that, like to use it as something to act. It doesn't mean that people who don't do that aren't politically engaged in other ways and other places. It doesn't mean that if it's not explicitly political, that it's not. That I think like all art, all music, all like all cultural expression are rooted in somewhat of a sociological observation. Like there's always something even unconsciously, that you're putting in your art or music or stuff that is rooted in your background, in your opinions, in your experiences. So it's not like a black and white situation. I feel, in my personal opinion, I think I prefer when artists or bands are politically engaged. It makes me like them more. But I think like speaking is one thing. I think it's always better when there are very concrete actions besides. Like speaking up and speaking out is super important. It's better if it's like amplifying the voices of others, and if it's like if you're sending some of the revenue that you have from your art to these causes, or if like I think you should always like try to apply what you're speaking up about in your actions as a band or as an individual. And nobody's perfect. We aren't, far from it. Nobody's like the super perfect Antifa soldier or whatever. I don't know. But I think things can always be better, always be perfected. Even though you won't reach perfection, you should always try. And it's important to like take a step back and think, okay, how can I do this better? How can this be more effective? Yeah, I'm getting a bit rambly. I hope this is clear. So yeah, I think I always prefer... I prefer a band that isn't explicitly political, but like has actions besides what they do on stage. In that takes actions besides just speaking up. I prefer that than bands that speak up but don't do anything else outside. But both go hand in hand. They're both important in their ways. This is just my take. We try to do both in Spiruline. It doesn't mean it's enough. To answer the rest of the question, I don't think one is more serious than the other. And I think you can be like, I don't know if what you mean by serious, but you can have some political or sociological discourse and still keep it like a bit light and fun. I think it's important to have moments of joy in what you in your fights. That's what gives people hope. That's what gives people the want. It makes people want to connect with each other. It's these connections that create collective actions. Yeah. And I don't know if it's the best music that is rooted in political angst. I think it's important, but also one thing I can say is, especially because we also book concerts of other bands sometimes here. I prefer booking a band that is not like my favorites musically, that doesn't or that aren't really ready or not perfect or the best musicians in terms of like musicianship and artistic value, but that have actions or words that are important. I think it's important like to not be like, oh yeah, I agree with what they say and what they do, but they're not good, so I'm not gonna book them. I think that's stupid, and that's the musical quality, especially in punk and in hardcore, when it's not supposed to be like gatekeepy and it's not supposed to be elitist. You should platform bands and artists that agree with your views and that have important messages, even though they're not perfect. And it's also a political act, especially if it's people that aren't the most visible in your scenes, like women, queer people, racialized people, and any people from that are marginalized. You should give them the opportunity to be better, to become better at with what they do, because playing on stage is also training, and it's also something that you can't only learn in the studio. So I hope that answers the question. It's a good question, because it's not like a yes or no answer for me. It really depends on the band, on the discourse, on what you're saying and what you're doing. There are bands that have like the perfect political discourse, but that are douchebags in their lives, or with their close the range people. I think it's a start to already like apply your political views on how you treat people that you interact with directly. On that note, well, I don't know if I'm the best to answer these kind of questions, but as I'm speaking, we're at the end of May 2025. I'm in France. In Europe and in the US, the extreme right or the far right is really rising. Fascism is really gaining a lot of power right now. Even like more moderate, at least in France, moderate right parties are getting more and more extreme. And I don't think the people are necessarily on the far right, but I think we're at a point of history that is really scary, not mostly because of that, honestly, but because of that and because of the ecological situation. Like, we know that we're kind of fucked at this point. We have all the data, all the scientific proof that we as humans kind of fucked the planet over, and there's still a bit of a range of things we can do to change that, but it's getting more and more difficult, and we know that the capitalist system is what is causing this, and the only way of maybe saving a little bit of humanity is to come out of this system, and this system is inherently intertwined with fascism. So it's all connected, and while this seems depressing, I know, and I know that there are a lot of people working and doing their best to prevent us from really like the tipping point of falling in the most terrifying situations. I'm speaking really from my context here. And this gives me a lot of hope, and I think honestly we have to, even though sometimes we don't want to, we have to keep hope, or else there's no... I really hate like nihilistic and like like misanthropic discourse, especially in music. I'm thinking of very specific bands and like genres right now. I really don't like it. I've never been a fan of that. I always feel like it's an excuse to keep on doing the wrong things just because humanity is like that, you know, and we're all doomed to just die at some point, and I don't like thinking like that. I don't think it's constructive. I don't think it makes you a good person, and being aware that there are bad people and of the bad in you, just being aware of it doesn't cancel it, you know. So yeah, I'm not the person to answer this question very specifically, but... And still in France, we're very privileged to have access to a lot of things that are threatened today. Like, we have free healthcare, but it's still... It's getting kind of attacked very much more. Same when it comes to all social rights that we have, like when you don't have a job or that kind of stuff. Everything is getting stripped away from us, or at least they tried to strip it away from us. And we still have, even though it's not perfect, a lot of, like, we in Spiruline still haven't had any form of censorship from the government or that kind of stuff. Like, there are obviously countries like where Spiruline would have a lot more difficult time existing, and that we would be under much more threat than what we are in France, obviously. We have a better range of motion than in other places of the world, sadly. But even in France, there are some things that can get you in a lot of trouble. But I'll get to it maybe in the next questions. I hope this answers. As I said, at the point of, like, at the time I'm answering this interview, the situation in Palestine is just horrendous. It's just not fathomable for me how terrible the situation is right now. It's after there was some sort of ceasefire, and now things are worse than they have ever been. And it's honestly breaking my heart from, like, every day, every video, every image we see, and it makes you feel so powerless. Like, in terms of what you can do, and there's so much you'd be willing to do, and I don't know, it's I don't really have the words to describe how it makes, I'm saying me once again because I'm speaking on my behalf, but I'm pretty sure it's the same for the others. It's heartbreaking and revolting in every way. As French people, our government, our country has a historical role in the situation in Palestine today. In the creation of the State of Israel, in today we're still, like, sending arms and bombs to weapons to Israel. We're still hosting Israeli government officials. There was a TV channel that gave a platform to Netanyahu to, like, give his speeches even after he's been condemned by the CPI, and France has, like, officially said that it won't arrest him, even though we should be. And that's so revolting. And there are organizations in France that help refugees, that help Palestinians in Palestine today, with helping them with food, with access to medical aid and humanitarian aid, that are being repressed. As I'm speaking, there's one organization that's called Urgence Palestine that's under threat of being dissolved by the government because they considered too extreme or whatever, or like a terrorist organization that's so I'm gonna try and come back to where I was. Yeah, I was saying that, for example, there's an organization in France that's called Urgence Palestine that's helping Palestinians in France and in Palestine to survive, basically. And because they're accused by the government of being pro-Hamas or being a terrorist organization or whatever, they're under threat of being dissolved. And it's one of the biggest organizations in France to support Palestine and the Palestinians. And it's not the first organization that's been under fire because of their support of Palestine. And that's a dangerous thing here in France. And sometimes we feel a bit powerless in front of these situations, but what we try to do is to, at our tiny level of course, but at least support those organizations, uplift Palestinian voices outside and inside France, and oppose what our government is doing, because basically they've been, even though it's been not that outspoken, but they've been supporting Israel by sending weapons, protecting Netanyahu, and not doing much. And maybe since, I think 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago, I think Macron, the president, said something along the lines of this must stop and Israel must stop what they're doing, because it has escalated so much, but it's only now and it's so late. So yeah, to circle back to the question, I just think all of this is so heartbreaking, and we have a responsibility in France in this conflict, and we have a responsibility to oppose it and to do what's in our power to stop it and to help however we can. It's sad because everything we can do, it's never going to be enough, and there's so much harm that's been done already. But yeah, we try and support families that have like GoFundMes and such. We try individually to go to demonstrations. We participated in support concerts or support compilations, but yeah, all of this is important, but sometimes it just feels like it's nothing and it's just a drop in the sea. But maybe this drop is important. I don't know. But yeah, there aren't words to really describe how terrible this is and how it feels, and it's nothing compared to what the Palestinians are living. Of course, I can only imagine, and I will never fully able to understand what it's like living through this, and yeah, it still feels so wrong, and it's so difficult, like feeling like everything you do is, I don't know, you don't know if it really helps. I always believe that at least if we can help, even if we can't change everything, we can at least help some people, and for those people it may make a big difference. But yeah, it's hard to put into words, really. We already talked about it a little bit, but I think musicians, among other people of course, but have this responsibility of, like, what they're doing is public, what we're doing is public. So you have to be held accountable for your actions, whether they are good or bad, and feeling guilty for a situation that you caused or something that's happening and that you don't agree with, like it's the case, for example, with Palestine, but with so many other things happening in the world and in our own country or in our own circles. Guilt may be a start, but it's not enough, and it's something that sometimes even hinders you and prevents you from acting. And I think you have to move from like feeling guilty and feeling like something's wrong and you can't do nothing about it, to actually do something about it. I think that's what the most important. It's how you act after you fuck up, or in reaction to something that you feel is wrong. I'm not gonna, I don't think it's useful or constructive to chase artists or musicians or that aren't speaking up or doing enough in your eyes, because actually you don't know, first thing, and like people might be doing things behind closed doors, and it's not because they're not like screaming on rooftops that they're doing things. Even if they aren't speaking about it, it doesn't mean they aren't doing things about it. And I think it's better to like act how you want to act, and maybe it may inspire others, which is also kind of a pretentious thing to say, but I believe much more in like, if what you're doing is working, is useful, is creating something positive, then it will give ideas to others. So at this point I much more prefer to like focus on what we are doing and not what others are doing or not doing. Yeah. And if you have a cause that's important for you, I think you should totally speak up about it. Use the even if you have like 50 followers and 2 people in the room when you play, it's still those people that can hear what you have to say. And I think it's still important, and we may not be able to change the world ourselves alone, but it's one brick in the wall. I suppose. For context, this question was sent a few months ago already. Well, the situation was already dire, but it's like even worse now. I would be very... it's really not my place to give advice to anyone, but especially not to the Palestinian people. So I don't think I have any. I mean, the advice I would have for anyone is what I said before, that if you feel strongly about something, maybe others do, and opening up about it will make other people become a community around it and speak up about it, and it just becomes bigger and bigger, and that's important. And even if you feel like you can't do something because you don't have the money, the time, the people, or people have been telling you that what you're doing is shit, or you're doing it wrong, or I don't know, whatever. Of course you should there's always solution, and if you put a bit of creativity inside of it, you can find ways of doing what you want to do and to say what you want to say. And even if some people try to bring you down, which can happen, you will find your public somewhere, and you will find your people somewhere, and we can find solution collectively too, especially when it comes to money or time or space issues. Yeah, that's an advice I would do, and don't be afraid to reach out to people too, like to ask for specific advice and that kind of stuff. But that's advice for anyone. All I can say about like the Palestinian people or any oppressed people really is what we can just try and help how we can. So if there's anything we can do as a band, as an individual, please reach out, and we'll see what's in our power. And yeah, it's really not my place to give advice to Palestinian artists. And I know there are Palestinian artists in France, and they should be supported, and they should be uplifted and not used maybe sometimes there's a bit of this like, oh, okay, it's important to support Palestine, so let's put this Palestinian artist there, and everyone, and it's kind of like everyone listening in a very like serious and like grave way, and like we shouldn't treat people, especially if most of them are refugees or children of refugees, but you shouldn't treat them differently than anyone, either here in France, I mean. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's more advice for other people on how to support Palestinians that I should give, and not, yeah. I hope that makes sense and that it doesn't come off the wrong way. But that's what we have tried doing, and I can provide some. I'm not a digger, I'm not a big digger in music, sadly, but I know of some artists, at least outside of Palestine in France, that are doing music or arts, and I can eventually provide some names. But yeah, that's I can only send my full support, and that's pretty much it. So thank you so much, Fikri, for giving us once again some space and time to speak about what we do. It's really heartwarming that maybe what we do can resonate somewhere else, and we'd love to come one day. And don't hesitate, anyone who's watching, to reach out to us if you have questions, if you're coming to France, if you want some material, I don't know, but we're learning as much as everyone else, and we're happy to share what we can, and we're happy to give back what some other people gave to us, and we're happy to learn too. And we might fuck up sometimes, but we always try to do better and to make the world a maybe less shitty thing, to put it in a very naive way. Thank you so much. Bye.